The night was long, and the air inside the hospital seemed unbearably heavy. On a narrow bed, under the harsh glow of sterile lights, Gao Tu clutched the sheets with trembling fingers as another wave of pain tore through him. His body shook violently. His breaths came shallow and broken. This was the moment he had dreaded for months. The moment his fragile body, weakened by years of inhibitors, would be pushed to its limits. Every contraction sent fire ripping through him. Every scream that escaped his lips was jagged with fear. And yet, what made it all worse was the silence beside him. The absence of the alpha who could have steadied his instincts. The absence of Shen WenLang. Without his pheromones, the Omega's body was left unmoored, adrift in agony, instincts spiraling out of control. The doctors rushed around him, their voices clipped and urgent. Blood pressure dropping, stabilize him now. He's not responding to the pain management. We need to monitor fetal distress, hurry. Gao Tu could barely hear them. The pounding of his heart filled his ears, followed by the piercing wails of the monitor. His vision flickered in and out. He thought for a fleeting moment that he could smell WenLang's calming scent, that he could hear that deep voice urging him to hold on. But when he opened his eyes, there was only the sterile white ceiling above him. No one was there. He was alone. The pain clawed at his very bones. His body wasn't just giving birth. It was fighting against years of damage, years of chemicals that had eaten away at his strength. Another contraction ripped through him. He screamed, his voice hoarse, raw, torn from his very soul. Sweat rolled down his temples. His lips trembled as he whispered through clenched teeth. Please, just let him live. Save my baby. His plea went unanswered. The doctors shouted orders. Machines beeped in warning. The smell of antiseptic grew stronger as surgical tools were prepared. Prepare for emergency C-section. We're losing him, get ready now. Cold hands moved him onto another table, harsh lights burning his eyes. The world spun, and Gao Tu felt himself slipping further away. Memories flashed before him. A smile once warm. A hand once steady. The alpha he had once loved. The alpha who was not here. He thought, if I die tonight, let my child survive. Even if I never see him grow, let him live. Tears slipped down his face as his chest rose and fell in broken rhythm. The weight of despair pressed down on him, but even then, he clung stubbornly to one thought: the baby must live. And then, a sound. A sharp, fragile cry that pierced the noise of the machines. Thin, trembling, but alive, the child's first breath, his son. The nurse hurried over, holding a bundle far too small, far too delicate, but breathing, crying, living. When the baby was placed in Gao Tu's arms, his world stopped. The pain didn't vanish, but for a fleeting moment it was forgotten. His son's skin was soft, warm against his chest. His tiny fists flailed weakly, his cries quieting when he felt the rhythm of his parents' heartbeat. Gao Tu's tears fell like rain. You're here, my little one. You survived. His voice was broken, full of love and sorrow. You made it. You're all I need. The doctors whispered grimly in the background. Severe blood loss. Unstable vitals. He might not make it through the night. But Gao Tu didn't let go. He held the baby closer, pressing trembling lips to his forehead. I'm sorry, he whispered, words choked with sobs. I couldn't give you a family. I couldn't give you the protection of your alpha. It's just me. Just me. His body trembled with exhaustion, but his heart clung desperately to the small life against him. You're my reason to fight, he murmured. No matter how weak I am, I'll keep breathing for you. The hours blurred. Nurses moved in and out, machines beeped. But Gao Tu's eyes never left his son. Even as pain gnawed at him, even as his body threatened to collapse, he forced himself to stay awake, to memorize the curve of the baby's tiny fingers, the warmth of his fragile body. The night stretched endlessly, but somehow, when dawn came, both were still alive. The hospital room was quiet again, but it was no longer the silence of emptiness. This time, it was the quiet of two hearts beating together. Gao Tu lay pale and weak, but when his gaze fell on the crib beside him, a faint smile curved his lips. His son was sleeping peacefully, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths. That sight was enough. Comma. You're safe, Gao Tu whispered. And as long as I'm here, I'll protect you. His words were a vow carved from his soul. Even if his body broke, even if his life was shattered, he would guard this child with everything he had left. It was a promise born from blood and tears, a promise no hardship could erase. That night would haunt him forever. The agony, the loneliness, the desperate fight against death. And 3 years later, when Shen WenLang finally appeared, the shadow of that night was still there. The birth of his son. The night WenLang had not been there. But survival did not mean peace. When the doctors finally stepped back, exhausted and grim, Gao Tu lay motionless, his body trembling from the battle it had fought. His chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. Every inhale burned, every exhale threatened to stop altogether. The nurses whispered among themselves, "He's barely stable. If his body gives out again, we might lose him before sunrise." Gao Tu heard them, though his eyelids were heavy and his body begged to surrender. He glanced at the crib beside him where his son slept, small fists curled, chest rising with fragile but steady breaths. That sight alone kept him clinging to life. With the last of his strength, he reached out, his fingertips brushing the blanket in the crib. His lips moved, forming words that were more air than sound. "My baby, don't be afraid. I'm still here." Tears gathered in the corners of his eyes. He wanted to hold him again, to feel that warmth against his chest, but his body was too weak. All he could do was watch, praying silently that dawn would come quickly. Time passed painfully slow. Every minute stretched like an eternity. His body drifted between darkness and light, between giving up and holding on. Each time the shadows closed in, the memory of his son's cry pulled him back. By the time the first light of morning crept through the window, Gao Tu's body was ravaged, his spirit drained. But he had made it. He had survived the night. And as he closed his eyes briefly, listening to the tiny breaths beside him, he whispered one last vow into the silence. "For you, I will keep living, no matter how much it hurts." If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel for more emotional ABO tales, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of Gao Tu and WenLang's journey.